This video is about the appointment process, how people get on the Supreme Court. The president nominates justices to be on the Supreme Court, and the Senate must approve, and the members of the court serve for life with good behavior. This is actually true for all lower federal courts as well, including district courts, which have a historically high approval rate. They have not much policy-making authority, and so there isn't that much controversy on approving them, though under Obama, the approval rate did drop a bit. A little more controversial, because it's a little more important, is the Court of Appeals. The same process. If there's a vacancy, the president nominates, and the Senate has to confirm. But this has had more people being blocked from their nominations. More than 20% have been blocked since the Carter administration. As part of this frustration of people not getting confirmed, the Democrats, when they controlled the Senate, exercised what was known as the nuclear option. This was in November of 2013. With the nuclear option, what happened was Republicans had been blocking judicial nominees via the filibuster, refusing to invoke cloture, thus stopping senators from talking if they wanted to prevent a vote on a nominee. And so when the Democrats invoked the nuclear option, that meant they were getting rid of the filibuster. You can't filibuster judicial nominees. You can only filibuster now laws, legislation. So it now is easier to get a nominee through. You just need 50 votes instead of 60, but there are still a lot of vacancies. Okay? Now, when we're talking about the Supreme Court, there are a number of things to consider when a president decides who should serve on the Supreme Court. And the first consideration, the most important thing they consider, is ideology. Members of the Supreme Court will serve for many years after the president is out of office, potentially after the president's dead. And so presidents that are more liberal want to appoint liberal justices, and presidents who are more conservative want to appoint conservative justices. Secondarily, is the person qualified for the job? Right? Do they have a history of judicial writings? Have they served on the U.S. Court of Appeals or a state Supreme Court? Things like that. In the 18th and 19th century, geography was also important. Not surprisingly, because everything was about trying to prevent a civil war over slavery. They tried to have balance between slave and non-slave states. But then also, there was a seat that was called the New York seat, because the thought was you should always have a justice from New York, because that justice would maybe better understand financial dealings and the way the economy works. More recently, instead of geography, we consider demographics. Again, the sort of descriptive representation standpoint. And so, when a president is making an appointment, they might consider how diverse is the court, and especially in the case where, for example, when Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American justice, retired, he was replaced with Clarence Thomas, the second African-American justice. Okay. Senate confirmation for all these things begin in the Judiciary Committee, and about 80% of Supreme Court nominations are confirmed. Confirmation is more likely if the president and the Senate majority are of the same party. Senators rarely refuse to vote for who the president has nominated, and if there's going to be a problem with the president's party, the president's told, sort of behind closed doors, hey, don't nominate that person, because we don't want to have to vote for that person. If the president's popular, presidents always get more of what they want, because senators from sort of states that are evenly divided between Republicans and Democrats need some votes from the other party, or at least need members of the other party to not turn out to vote for their opponents, and so you're less likely to go against a popular president. And early in the president's term, confirmation is more likely. Early in the president's term, the senators think essentially, well, it's a long time before there's another election. There's not that much we can do about this. But later on, You might try and say, can we hold this up entirely? Maybe we'll get to appoint our own nominee if we win the presidential election, or alternatively, tell the president, well, we don't like this nominee. We want you to pick somebody else. Maybe pick somebody who's more moderate if the president is appointing a liberal or a conservative. Because a more moderate pick would be more likely to be acceptable to both parties, even if neither party is all that happy about it. In the last 40 years, it's become very contentious, and that's even with a move towards presidents making safer picks. Everybody who has been nominated by Trump or Obama, and Bush and Clinton and so on and so forth, these are always have been essentially the most qualified people for the position. And despite that, like so many things in American politics, it's become there's been much more opposition because the court has become seen as much more of a policy-making area as well, right? That they set policy, the sort of the fights about how policy should be don't just happen in Congress, they can happen in front of the courts. And so interest groups have gotten involved more frequently. As this graph shows, the top of the graph shows appointments in the 50s and 60s, the bottom of the graph, appointments through President Obama. And what you can see here is that more and more interest groups, both supporting a justice but also acting against a justice, have been active. They've been pushing senators to either approve the appointment or to block the appointment, because these interest groups see the court as central to how the policies get shaped in America.